I'm going to start over again. Okay, the recorder is on, so you'll be able to pick up the rest of this on YouTube if you are so inclined. And to those of you who are unfamiliar, if you just go to YouTube in the search box, type in my name, Carl McPherson, and prophecy. You got to add the prophecy in there because there's another Carl McPherson in the world. I am totally amazed why God would do such a thing. But there are two of us. So type in prophecy, you'll get to my little link, and there's about, this will be number 28. And we'll move right along here. In Luke, we read 21, 33, 34 through 36, be careful, or your hearts will be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and anxieties of life, that day will close on you suddenly like a trap, for it will come on all of those who live on the face of the whole earth. So be always on the watch, and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen, and that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. There is an admonition that if we watch, then we will see what's about to happen and be able to escape from it. And of course, how do we escape from it? By our faith. And so we have in this class over the last almost a year now, you've been exposed to information. Now, the information that you've been exposed to probably you haven't seen before, because nobody ever taught me. I had to go find it myself. Well, I can't even claim that I found it myself. In many cases, God took it and hit me over the head with it, because I am not inclined to study much. And so these things that as I would come across them, they just stuck in my head. So I bring them on to you to demonstrate that there is evidence that we are at the end of the age. What is the end of the age? And what evidence is there that time is short? Well, as we've been through this class, the Jewish view of time kind of gives us a clue, right? That time starts with Adam, and that there are 2,000 years of chaos, 2,000 years of the law, 2,000 years of the Messiah, and then followed by 1,000 sabbatical years. Now, if you read the Zohar or almost any Jewish book related to prophecy or time, you'll find that all over them. And you not only find that view of 6,000 years of what's called the Olam Hazeh, followed by 1,000 years of what's called the Olam Haba, which is the millennial kingdom, followed by, I got that wrong, followed by 1,000 years, which is the Atid Lavo, followed by 1,000 years, which is the Olam Haba, the age which is to come, which is eternity. So 6,000 years. So if we're getting close to 6,000 years from Adam, then it stands to reason that we're at the end of the age as the Jews understood it, and the age that was the disciples asked in Matthew 24, what will be the signs of the end of the age? And there is a Bible out there which was produced by, can't remember his name now, but it says not the end of the age, it says the end of the Olam Hazeh, which was the understanding of the Jews, and that was the question. So we know that, at least the way the Jews look at things, we're at the end of the age, because it's been about 6,000 years now. The book of Enoch reinforces the same idea. It says that there's 6 periods, followed by a 7th, and then an 8th period of not counting. So the book of Enoch tends to support our belief that time is short. And then there's the Gospel of Barnabas, which goes into some detail about that time period. 6,000 years, followed by a 7,000-year period. The book of Daniel. Okay, how does the book of Daniel tell us that we're at the end of the age? Any clues? I mean, it doesn't really give us days. What does it give us? Well, it says in Daniel chapter, what is it? What's the last chapter in Daniel? 22? 12. Oh, I got the 2 right. Daniel 22 says that, go your way, Daniel, until the end of the age. This is not basically, this prophecy isn't given to you. It's given to those at the end of the age. Because at that point, knowledge will be increased and people will understand. Well, we're understanding. I mean, you can't, in this age, if there was ever a generation which was exposed to an explosion in technology and knowledge, it's this one. And there are some who are saying now that every 6 months the total sum of man's knowledge is doubling. It's astounding, the changes that my generation has seen. Because when I grew up, I had a vacuum tube radio, and that was it. And I remember the first 7-transistor radio I got. And I would get in my bed because at about 9 o'clock at night, the atmosphere would line up so that I could pick up WLS in Chicago. And I would get under my pillow and would tune in my 7-transistor radio and listen to Dick Biondi, WLS, Chicago.
I have a little, I don't know what, a little round thing I call it, a little cat whisper was on it.
Yeah?
Remember that? Anybody have that?
Yeah.
And had a little teeny little earbud thing you put in there, and that was like 46 or 47.
Yeah, I had one of those too.
No tubes or anything.
No, it was just a diode in there, and you could tune it, and you could actually hear radio if you were close enough to it. So, yeah, look at where we've been. And now I can sit here and pull up on my iPhone 6 almost anything. Yeah, Gil.
The hardest working people in the world today is an encyclopedia salesman.
Isn't that the truth? And you know what? This thing has almost killed the watch business. I don't need a watch anymore. I got everything here. What time do you want to? What time is it in New York? Oh, no problem. I mean, I got everything here. This thing is, well, it's magic. Don't try to figure it out. It's all magic. So, at any rate, the book of Daniel says, at the end of the age, knowledge is going to be increased, and people will run to and fro across the face of the earth. If there was ever been a generation that's been running to and fro and just running plain stupidly, it's... and then we got the book of Revelation. Now, you look at all the signs that are in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation, as you've heard me say, was almost kicked out. And it's at the last of the New Testament, not because it was the last printed, but because it was thought to be the least. And there was a huge schism about whether it should go in there or not. And had it not been for the phrase in the very back, which said, if you add to or subtract from this one, bad things will happen, those who were putting together the canon said, well, I'm not going to leave this thing out. You leave it out, but I'm not. I'm going to put it in. I don't want to be added to or taken from. And so I put it in there. And, of course, God intended it that way, because otherwise we would have missed out on an awful lot of information regarding the end of the age and what's going to happen. So, you that the book of Daniel helps. And then the signs and the stars. We've been through the sign of Aquarius. The pole of the planet is moving from Pisces, which is the fish, into the sign of Aquarius. And of course, those of you who have been here when we went through the Feast of Tabernacles know that there is a feast called the Beit HaShoivah, where it's called the House of the Water Pouring. It's a ceremony which basically is a rehearsal of the Messiah and the living waters, the Mayim Hayim, that are flowing from his side as he sets in the Holy of Holies during the millennial reign. And the salient point of the next 1,000 years will be the flowing out of living waters from Jerusalem, from the temple, from the body of Christ himself. So we see that sign, and we are there for all intents and purposes. Now, of course, that's a big, wide range, whether it's in this sign or that sign, but it is so close that you could argue that, hey, we're in that age of Aquarius, if not there, pretty close. So these are elements that give us cause to believe that we're at the end of the age. Now, there's another one, the prophecy of the popes. Now, unless you are a prophecy guru and are constantly scanning the internet for the latest and the greatest in the world of prophecy, you may have missed this one, because it's, well, I'm surprised at how few people are aware of it. But this prophecy was given around 1049, 1048, by a guy named, well, Mael Meadach U Morgir in Gaelic. We call him Malachi Morgir. And Malachi was born in 1094, and in Northern Ireland. He was the son of Lector Morgir, a nobleman. And in 1119, he was appointed as Vicar General of the region or city of Armagh in Ireland, Northern Ireland. He was a reformer, and he's credited as being a prophet. There were other prophecies and things that he spoke that apparently came true. And he became Archbishop of Armagh in 1138 and concluded that in 1139. And so he was basically a bishop in the Catholic Church in Ireland. Now, at around 1139 or 1140, he received a call from Pope Celestine II to come to Rome. Apparently, he had a certain amount of stroke with the Catholic Church, and so he went to Rome. And while he was there, he had a vision. And in this vision, he saw that there would be from Pope, who was it? Celestine, I believe it was Celestine I, to the end of the age, there would be 112 popes. And for each one of these popes, he saw a little Latin verse. And that Latin verse would ascribe some characteristic of the pope or his seal or his coat of arms or something that would tie him to this. Now, I'm not going to go through 112 of these things because if you read it, this prophecy in ancient times was believed to be absolutely true. It was so much believed to be true that they fiddled with it. And there are several hundred years in which they tried to get their own guy into to be a pope, and so they screwed up with the prophecy. And so there's a section of them in there that are null and void as far as anybody knows. But they didn't see down toward the end of time, and so they didn't mess with these down here. And so we have those intact as they were prophesied. And it's interesting how they go. Now, Pope John Paul the 23rd, the little verse that went with him was he was a shepherd and a sailor. And he was the patriarch of Venice, and it was obviously famous for its nautical street system. And, of course, he being a shepherd was the shepherd of the church. Now, I didn't know this, but Cardinal Spellman really wanted the job of Pope. And so while the conclave was trying to decide who it was, they had a view of the Tiber River. And so as they were pondering and looking out on the Tiber, here comes Cardinal Spellman in a boat full of sheep, running up and down the Tiber River. And he was trying, obviously, to say, look, here, I am a sailor and I'm a shepherd. And, well, obviously it didn't work because he's still a cardinal. He's not the Pope. But I thought that was... Now, Pope Paul VI. He was a little snippet that went with him. He was the flower of flowers. And if you look on his coat of arms, there are 3 fleurs de lis. Isn't there a song by that name? Fleurs de lis. Anyway, it means flowers of a lily. So, seems to apply, these little snippets that the guy had. Now there's Pope John Paul I. From the midst of the moon was the snippet that went with him. Now this guy has an interesting reign. It was 33 days. And it went from the half moon to the half moon next month, from the midst of the moon. Now his reign, only 33 days, was cut short because he was a good man. That's hard to believe, Pope be a good man, but he was. He saw corruption in the Vatican Bank. He had firsthand knowledge of what was going on. There was a guy named Marcinkus who was from Chicago, a bishop from Chicago, who ran the Vatican Bank. And he ran it into the ground and was doing all kinds of shenanigans in the background to the point where he had lost $500 million. And in order to cover it up, he contracted with the mob in Chicago to give him $500 million in counterfeit money, which he put in the bank and claimed that the money was still there. Well, John Paul found out about it. He was going to run the whole lot of them off. Well, then the paper to do that was on his desk when he was found dead. And interestingly enough, he was a healthy man. He was a mountain climber. He had no vices that anybody knew. He was strong as a horse, but all of a sudden he died one night. And what does the Vatican do? They come out the next day and they said, well, he was in such poor health and he smoked a lot and, he must have had a stroke or something. And so not only did they not allow an autopsy, they cremated him the next day. So nobody knows what happened to Pope John Paul I. So at any rate, this was typical of the shenanigans that go on in the background of the Vatican. And there are those who believe that the P2 branch of the Freemasons were in control, and they're the ones that ordered his death because they were making big bucks off the Vatican Bank.
What is the P2 branch of the Freemasons? What is that?
I can't tell you any more about it, but what I can tell you is if you were to find this book called In God's Name by David A. Yallop and read it, it'll give you all of the details. And I'm surprised this guy's still alive, but it runs through all the details of this death, the cover-up, and the people surrounding the Pope that died as a result of it. And one of them was killed in London. He was hung underneath one of the bridges with a brick in his pocket. That's the characteristic of the Freemasons when they take care of you. So I would, read this book. And by the way, if you want to know more about Petrus Romanus, I would recommend this book by Thomas Horn and Chris Putman called Petrus Romanus. And it has all the details. Obviously, this is the Reader Digest version you're going to get today. But for our purposes, that's really all you need. So, at any rate, Pope John Paul I, that's what was, come on, computer. Now, Pope John Paul II, from the labor of the Son, Pope John Paul II was a dedicated follower of Mary, the goddess Mary. And he was born on May 18th, 1920, and during a partial eclipse of the sun, and was buried on April 18th, 2005, during a hybrid eclipse of the sun again. So, it's hard to put a lot of confidence in these things, but there's just enough there that makes you believe that, well, maybe these prophecies got some element of truth in them. Now, Pope Benedict the XVI, okay, you guys, what is that? 16th? 16th? I got it right? Okay. Pope Benedict the 16th. I didn't know there were 16 Benedicts in front of him. The glory of the olive. Pope Benedict was a Benedictine monk, and their symbol was an olive branch. And some also try to tie him into the Olivet Discourse, which, of course, we know is Matthew 24. I don't know what value that grabs them, but gets them, but that's what they say. Now, we're getting to the meat of the story. Pope Francis, the current pope, is Peter the Roman. He is the 112th pope, according to the prophecies of Malachi. And he is a Roman, born in, where is it he was born? Porto Comero. Anybody? I don't know where that is. Porto Comero, it's in Italy. We know that. He's a Roman. And he is the final pope, and there was this ominous phrase written about him. In extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will nourish the sheep through many tribulations. And when they are finished, the city of 7 hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people. The end. The end. No more popes. And so, what are we to make of all of this? Well, Peter the Roman, or Pope Francis, according to Malachi, and he's been right apparently on a lot of these things, is the last pope. So what does that tell us? If it's right, we're at the end of the age. And this snippet about him certainly speaks to me of the tribulation period and the conclusion of the Roman Catholic Church, the elimination of it. And so that is pretty much the story of Petrus. And what we gather from it is the fact that Well, if that is correct, and he is the last one, we ought to see some interesting things happen. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
a little bit confused. I thought, he could have been born in Italy, but I thought he was from South America, wasn't he?
He was. He was born, he is an Italian, that makes him a Roman,
Yeah.
but he served in, what was it, Argentina?
Yeah.
Yeah, he came out of Argentina.
So he was
And-
born in Italy, but he.
And I believe he is a Jesuit, yes.
It seems that there's only really two answers that I can tell. Maybe you have more. One of them is that he will be the last one, and the end time comes in Christ, and all happy, happy, happy. The other would be, it doesn't seem make sense to me that the Catholic Empire would say, well, we're done with the popes, we're not going to have any more popes. I can't see them doing that. Can you?
No. So the whole system would have to be destroyed, root and branch.
Yeah.
And what do we know about the tribulation period? There will come a time when there will be no faith found upon the earth. And then that which remains is going to be purged, and the only ones that will remain are those who have been bought by the blood of others. And there is going to be a huge bloodletting. And then we're going into this new age in which the Jews, well, not the Jews, it's Israel, will be raptured back into Jerusalem, where they will rule and reign with the Messiah 4,000 years. And so there will be no more Roman Catholic Church. Has anybody heard of the visions of Fatima? Fatima? Yeah, most of them. What's the last one? Anybody know what the last vision was? Well, I can paraphrase it. I don't remember it exactly, but it basically was that the vision was the Pope who was beaten and battered, and he was climbing up a hill to a rough-hewn cross over the bodies of nuns and bishops. And when he gets to the top, he is shot and killed. The Catholic Church kept that thing under wraps, and even kept the little Portuguese girl, in sequester for fear that would get out. And when it got out, then they tried to ignore it. But it was kind of interesting, because this is not a prophecy that the popes want to. If I was pope, I wouldn't want that one out. I don't. But they made such a big deal about the first two visions that the third one, well, if you read the first two, the third one's got to be right too. So they were backtracking and trying to ignore it, but yet that vision very similar to what this snippet is about Pope Francis. So for what it is worth, it sounds like the last pope is here.
Pope Francis to the name Peter the Roman.
His title, which he is allowed to select, was Pope Francis. But the snippet in Latin for him was Petrus Romanus. And that means Peter the Roman. So how do you tie that in? The only way you can tie it in is the fact that he was a Roman. And Peter the Roman, I'm not sure. Maybe that'll make sense later on. Doesn't make much sense to me right now. But
The Catholic Church says Peter was the
Peter allegedly was the first pope, as they say. That's another interesting story. I used to work with a former Catholic priest, and he was the most brash, braggadocious guy I ever worked with in my life. And we got to talking about religion one day, and I told him, I said, I don't understand how Peter can be your first pope, because who was after Peter? Where was the succession? And he quoted this document called the Decretals of, wish I could remember the name now. But at any rate, it was a document that supposedly had a whole bunch of correspondence between all the popes, from Peter all the way up to the current pope. And so I wondered about that, and I looked it up, and you know what? In the internet, it calls them the false decretals, and they were all written in the handwriting of one pope. So it kind of makes you wonder where these decretals came from that allegedly, tie all the popes together. Well, the answer is it was made up. If they didn't have enough information to do it legitimately, they made it up. Yeah, Meryl?
Because there are more than just me in here that have a Catholic background, I want to clarify that there are good people in every church. I have saved family members, and I know that they are because I know their hearts. They're just misguided because they're not learning God's word as like we want to do today in here. But if the corruption comes through the Vatican, is that right?
Yeah, I was going to get to that, and that was half the reason I went through my faith story earlier. And basically, how are you saved? Well, we're saved because we're Baptists, right? All Baptists are saved? No, I don't think so. We're saved because of our faith in Christ. Is that uniquely associated with the Baptist Church? No. Are there Catholics? Absolutely. There will be some Catholics in heaven. Even a few Baptists. I mean, who knows?
That word "new" makes me nervous.
What's that?
That word "few" makes me nervous.
There's 7 billion people on the planet. A few hundred million, give or take a few thousand. So yeah, you're exactly right. And when you're getting into this subject of the Roman Catholic Church, you've got to deal with, well, where is it in the Bible? Why do we care about the Roman Catholic Church? And there are those who would say, well, not the Bible. Well, the Baptists aren't in the Bible either. I don't think. Well, John was a Baptist? Well, I can't remember. But no, the Catholic Church, unlike other institutions, is there. And so I can't leave this subject. And in order to talk about it, well, we got to read Revelation 1 through 3. Well, 17. I'm going to read the whole chapter 17, then I'm going to come back and make some comments about it, so we can see where we're going with this. And I know you've been through Revelation before, but you may not have been through it, at least not in 17 and 18, like I'm going to take you. And it's going to take more than just today. As usual, I always bite off more than I can chew. Okay, Revelation 17, 1 through 3. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls, came to me and said, come and I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute that sits by many waters. It's the first time this has ever been introduced. And I looked back and I tried to find it. This angel's pulling this right out of the thin air. John didn't know what this prostitute is. And he says, and with her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit to the wilderness, and there I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names and had 7 heads and horns. And the woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held in her hand a golden cup filled with the abomination and filth of her adulteries. And the name given on her forehead was Mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of those who bore the testimony of Jesus. And when I saw her, I was astonished greatly. Then the angel said to me, why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and the beast on which she rides, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. And the beast, which you saw once was, is now not, and yet will come. Strange words, out of the abyss and go into destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have been not written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast. What does that tell you? There's a book written from the creation of the world in which there is life. And there is a book written from the creation of the world in which there is not life. And they will be astonished to see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come. I'll go over that some more later. This calls for the mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills in which the woman sits. Any clues on which city that is? And they are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain only for a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. And he belongs to the 7 and is going to destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings, which now have not yet received a kingdom, but for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. And they will have one purpose, and will give their power and authority to the beast. And when they wage war against the Lamb will triumph over them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers. And the angel said to me, the waters which you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. This word waters or seas, anytime you see that, it's usually talking about the tossed sea of humanity. It's everybody on it. And the beast and the 10 horns that you saw will hate the prostitute, and they will bring her to ruin, and leave her naked, and will eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish this purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman that you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. Now, the farmer and the teacher. I like this one. I have a reason for this. The farmer came into the teacher's room with his son in tow, and in his hand was an essay that his son had written. The grade on the essay was marked down 10 points due to improper punctuation. The farmer demanded that the teacher restore those 10 points, since punctuation was such a small thing anyway. And the teacher wasn't giving any time to respond. He only sat there and was taking all this verbal abuse and couldn't get a word in edgewise, and so he simply stood up and wrote the following phrase on the blackboard. The teacher said the farmer was stupid. Now, the farmer was really incensed, and he was about to rearrange the geography of the teacher's face, and the teacher completed the phrase with punctuation as follows. The teacher, comma, said the farmer was stupid. Now, you look at this one, and you look at this one. The meaning is changed 180 degrees. Why was it changed 180 degrees? Because of the punctuation. Well, now I had a reason for saying that, and I can't back up, but you'll remember. I'll have to read it here out of my Bible. That passage that I just read you, that said mystery. I mean, if y'all open your Bibles there to Revelation chapter 17, I think it's verse 3.
Verse 5.
5, 17:5, and see what the punctuation is. My Bible says, upon her forehead was the name written, a mystery, and then, in quotes and capital letters, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Well, that ain't what the original says. You got to back up. Her title is Mystery Babylon the Great. Well, what difference does that make? Well, I'm telling you, for years, I was one amongst those that taught that before the end could come, Babylon had to be restored. And where's Babylon? It's in Iraq. What is today? There is the correct punctuation. Mystery Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and abominations. Here's the difference. Babylon is a place 53 miles south of Baghdad. And in Jeremiah 51:49, it says, Babylon has caused the slain of Israel to fall, so Babylon shall fall for the slain of all of the earth. Wherever Babylon is, she is going to pay a price for all of them that were killed. Now, Babylon, like I say, it's currently there in the Babil Governorate in Iraq, 53 miles south of Baghdad, and it's comprised mostly of broken mud brick buildings and debris. That's Babylon today. And if you look carefully, you will see that there's not a single structure there that's inhabited. It's a pile of trash. Now, Saddam Hussein attempted to rebuild it and spent about $100 million trying to rebuild it, and he rebuilt it with bricks with his insignia on them. Saddam Hussein, son of Nebuchadnezzar. He thought he was the reincarnation of Nebuchadnezzar. And so he was going to rebuild the whole city. Well, best of luck, he didn't make it. And to this day, it's just a pile of ruins. And so if we are sitting here at the end of the age, where's Babylon? It's a pile of junk. And there's nobody there to get revenge upon, except maybe a few goat herders. Doesn't seem like something, it just seems like something is wrong. Well, the something is wrong is our misunderstanding of what Babylon really means. Mystery Babylon is, in the Greek, mysterion for mystery. And if you look up the synonyms for mystery, they are hidden or secret. There is another Babylon. Now, does anybody know a guy named Alexander Hislop? Well, in 1853, Alexander Hislop wrote a book called Two Babylons, in which he dealt with this dilemma. There is another Babylon, but it is secret, and it is hidden, and it has sway to this day over the kings of the earth. So where is it? Well, if you come back next week, I'll tell you.
All right.
I couldn't do this in one session. And after I got involved with Petrus Romanus, I could only get about half of this story done. And I want to give it justice. And in order to do that, we got to know who Babylon is, her characteristics. And once you understand that, then Revelation 17 and 18 will make some sense. And we'll also understand where the Roman Catholic Church fits in all of this. And the evidence that supports it is pretty overwhelming. So I wanted to quit there for today and give you a chance to comment. Because as you know in the past, I go for an hour. I always think I've got 30 minutes of stuff and it goes for an hour and a half. So nobody ever has a chance to comment. So are there any comments today?
When will you have a chance after next week to put the lesson up on YouTube? Because I'm going to have to listen next week.
I will have it up within 48 hours.
48.
Usually within 24. And like right now.